Well, Gordon Brown is out canvassing for Labour votes at a factory in Worcester. Our political correspondent James Cook is following the Labour campaign. James.
Yes, Gordon Brown is here at the Worcester Bosch group where he's meeting staff. He'll be talking to staff inside the factory here. He's just touring around at the moment, chatting to people inside. He's been shown the production line. He'll be talking to engineers who work here and develop the new products in the research and development field, and he'll also be chatting to apprentices as well. The people here are very keen to speak to Mr Brown because they're very keen on the boiler scrappage scheme which was introduced by the Labour government. It's actually expired now, it's no longer in place, but they say it has been enormously beneficial to them in terms of keeping business going during the recession. They would very much like Labour to promise to extend that boiler scrappage scheme, which involved a £400 grant to help people with new boilers. Some people said it was a relatively small scheme because it only affected 125,000 people, but here that they say that they're men in their white vans out on the road, who they're fitters as they were described to me, I'm not being sexist, that's how they were described to me, have benefited enormously from that scheme. So that is obviously one of the reasons that Labour has chosen to come here and to address workers here, just to promote what they think is a scheme that Labour has put in place, which has tried to get Britain through the recession, which is the whole message that they're trying to get across as part of this general election campaign.
Yeah, James, we're watching the pictures now of Mr Brown and his wife Sarah arriving. How long, do you know, how long is he expected to be in there for?
I suspect he'll be here altogether for about 3/4 of an hour or so. There's various different areas of the factory that he's going to visit. He's going to chat to different people, as I say, on the production line. He's also going to speak to these apprentices, but he's also going to be talking as well about the green technology that they're developing here. Solar powers, for example, that they're developing here. That's another part of this company's plan for the future. They're trying to switch people over to solar power, although, as they say themselves, people I've been talking to at the company, they recognise there is a considerable outlay for people to do so, and they'll no doubt be wanting to speak to the Prime Minister about what help government can give them and trying to persuade people to switch over to solar power. They've been telling me that the solar panels that they make, this company, and that they can fit on the roofs of a normal, say, 3-bedroom semi, it could basically mean that the house could turn off its boiler for between April and October. It could power the house for the whole of the summer, and that's something that they want to discuss, and that obviously is another message that Labour wants to get across in this general election, is its green credentials. All parties, of course, in the general election campaign keen to stress their green credentials, and furthermore, another reason why Labour have come here and why Gordon Brown has decided to come here is because Worcester is one of these key marginal seats at the general election campaign, a majority of just over 3,000 for the Labour Party, but it is a Tory seat. In history, it has been a Tory seat for many years. It's been Labour since the landslide of 1997, but for many years the Conservatives held this seat. Peter Walker, now Lord Walker, the former cabinet minister, was the MP here for many years, and his son is now standing this time around for the Conservatives.
And James, as you mentioned a little early then, Mr Brown really wanting to focus on the economy. Some say that's taking a bit of a gamble, obviously because it could fall either way, but that's the key message, and that's what we're going to hear more on later this week as well.
That's right. Gordon Brown very keen to keep talking about the economy. It's the absolute central message. It's a message that we will hear in the final television debate, of course, as well. That's the subject for discussion there. And it is, as you say, a risky strategy, because Mr Brown can be attacked on one hand because we've ended up in one of the worst recessions in modern times. His argument in reply to that is, of course, well, it wasn't my fault, basically. In a nutshell, it was the global system. Every country has suffered, and he says his government is one which has tried to do its best to try to alleviate the effects of the recession, and the boiler scrappage scheme would be one example of that, as we see Gordon Brown now just shaking hands with some of the staff here at this factory. But of course the Conservatives and other opposition parties take an opposing view. They will say that well, actually Gordon Brown didn't do enough to prepare Britain for this recession, and they will point, of course, to the massive deficit that the country is now in, the lack of money that there is available, and for example, that Mr Brown can't afford to extend the boiler scrappage scheme.
And crucially, James, we're expecting More figures on the economy this week that really will give a final snapshot then. We're expecting official figures, what on in inflation. In fact, I'm just hearing that we can hear from Mr. Brown, as you can see in there.
Oh, so they're getting all the practice and doing it. Are you impressed by the new products?
Very efficient.
A lot easier to install and check. Yeah. Boilers, but certainly there's been a big upsurge in orders, hasn't there?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and the scrappage
scheme helped.
Yes. Towards it, yes, it did.
Kept you busy, did it?
Now it's coming down in South Wales, so...
It's interesting though that people respond to the offer.
Oh yeah, indeed, yeah.
But it has worked just like the car scrappage scheme. So we're looking at other things we can do in the future. So
it's very easy to do. I think that was the secret.
Yeah,
it's very easy
the vouchers.
I
think it was 125,000 in the end.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
And you provided, you said 40,000.
We would like to think so.
You haven't got the final results yet.
We don't get the, no, because it's still. I think by the time they're all installed, it'll be a little bit longer yet before they're.
Because the installations are not yet done.
But the part that's been very good is it's been very easy for the consumer to go through the scheme. So it's been very
it's worked very well. So
very quick too down in South Wales. Turnaround's been probably within 2 weeks.
Yeah. So it gets the bills down, does it?
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? Anyway, it's great to see you all. I'm now going to see the training account. This is Sarah. This is Mike Foster, who's the MP for Worcester.
Well, we'll be hearing more from the Prime Minister there, canvassing in Worcester at that boiler manufacturers, talking about that scrappage scheme that has been deemed, well, at least a success for that company, with a surge in orders, as the Prime Minister was hearing from some of the workers there. We'll hear more from James Cook and indeed the election campaign proper. It's the second week, of course, of campaigning. Latest opinion polls then giving the Liberal Democrats a small lead. The latest poll carried out by YouGov puts the Liberal Democrats ahead on 33%. Very little in it between the two top parties. The Tories coming in second on 32%, Labour in third on 26%. Let's take a look now at the BBC's poll of polls, which compiles data from all of the major polling companies. So as you can see, as of today, it shows the Conservatives on 33%, the Liberal Democrats in second place on 29%, Labour 28%. As we can see, then very little between second and third place on that latest poll. So what's happening